Okay, Courtney, I think we're ready.
All right, are we on?
I think we're on, Anna.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun.
Hi.
Okay, you guys, welcome. Good afternoon. I'm Anna Shapiro. I'm the artistic director at Steppenwolf and an ensemble member. Thank you all for joining us today. This is just a really special conversation for me, and I know for our community. I want to thank you for your incredible support of Steppenwolf as members, artists, generous donors, and our whole community. I'm sure many of you are wondering how Steppenwolf is doing right now while our stages are dark. So I wanted to give you a brief update before we begin our conversation with Brooke. Even though we don't have performances on stage at the moment, we continue to support our artists who are creating new work for you to enjoy through Steppenwolf Now, a new virtual programming stream featuring breakthrough stories written by our America's most talented voices and highlighting our incredible ensemble. Steppenwolf Now is included with all memberships, including a new virtual only membership. And I really do hope that you check it out. The response has been incredible, and the work is, as always, just cutting edge, and Steppenwolf is leading in this really difficult time. I'm proud of us for Steppenwolf, but I'm also proud of us because we're really showing the way for the rest of the American theater in terms of how to continue to make meaning in people's lives while we're all managing so much. Our amazing Steppenwolf education team deserves a shout out. They have been extremely active during this time with virtual workshops last spring that reached over 3,000 teens and educators. Next month, we're looking forward to stepping into virtual classrooms in Chicago and around the world with a radio play of George Orwell's Animal Farm. As of yesterday, over 250 groups representing 13,000 young adults worldwide have signed up for the free streaming of this iconic and oh so relevant play. I just listened to it the other day. I was supposed to be listening to it to give notes, and I got so wrapped up in it, I did not take one note. It made me remember what it felt like to be told a story. And it's so evocative that my visual brain just went crazy and it took me there. And I'm so excited to share it. I hope everybody gets a chance to see it. But now it is my great pleasure to welcome our new executive director, Brooke Flanagan. Brooke, it is so wonderful to be able to do this and to say that you are our new executive director. I feel like I've waited a long time for this moment. So welcome, my love.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and so honored that all of these folks would take time out to join us for your lunch break in the virtual land today.
Well, any chance I get to listen to you, I take too. So Brooke, you joined Steppenwolf as our executive director, and I can't believe this. I'm looking at my prompts, and it says it was just 8 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I could both burst out laughing at the idea that it's only been 8 weeks. And it's just been crazy. But this is not your first time at Steppenwolf.
That's
and
right.
You have been here before. So what can you give everybody kind of the background of when you were previously here and what was your role?
Yeah, absolutely. It's true that 8 weeks seems like years. And I'm sure you all are experiencing this, that in this moment, pandemic time is this very odd construct. Nevertheless, so the last time I was at Steppenwolf was, February of 2004, I started. And I was the director of institutional giving. No, I was director of individual giving, and worked across 7 seasons at the theater. And during that time, evolved to expand my role into major gifts, which we started the major gift program at the theater. And then also when Judith Kaufman retired after many, many years at the theater, I was lucky enough to succeed her in carrying on the tradition of special events. So it was fantastic, those 7 years. It was a time when David Hawkinson had just begun as our executive director. Martha Levy was continuing her legacy, and I was fortunate enough to work with Anna as a director during that time. And we were doing all sorts of crazy cool things at the theater, right? We were
Yep.
taking the opportunity to say at our 30th anniversary, like, we don't want to be reflective. We want to be forward looking. We want to take that opportunity to really dive into what it meant to be a launching pad for new work. And then, you know, I think, Anna, that time was really interesting too, in terms of codifying like what we meant as both a home for generative artists, and also like how did the institution define itself beyond the personality of the ensemble, right? So that it was both in service to the art, but also an institution that was a Chicago, you know, cultural icon that would live on forever. And
That's right. That's absolutely right. And we, you know, what's interesting about that, right, is that when you left, besides the fact that I cried for a week, I remember standing in Brooke's office going, no,
it's true.
No.
There were lots of tears shed.
Lots of tears. But I remember I said to you, what are you doing? And you said, I have to go out and get the information I need to come back and run this place.
That's
so
right.
I feel like you and I have come full circle. And the theater is in another reflective moment, right? Where you go through periods as an institution where you say, what is our role? What is our function? You know, we think of Steppenwolf, right, as Steppenwolf is a grateful citizen of Chicago. That is what we are. And we serve our city. And we have to constantly reflect, as the city changes and the world changes, what the function of the theater is. And now, here it is, it's COVID, right? And what the audience might not know is that I found out that David Schmitz was going to be leaving about a week before COVID hit. We were, many of us were in New York because the Minutes was supposed to open on Broadway. And we got the message, we got the, you know, information that he was going to be moving on. And immediately our board chair, Eric Lefkowski, and I just said, we have to get Brooke, because it was, you know, it wasn't a normal situation. It wasn't a normal transitional time. And I'm just wondering, did you have anxiety about that? I mean, you were really ensconced at Chicago Shakes, where you've had such a positive impact, where that executive team, you know, was completely dependent on you, to their own admission. And here I was saying, hey, the whole world's on fire. Want to come over? Like,
yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was a crazy moment, but you know, I mean, as you intimated, Anna, the reason that I left to be in partnership with Barbara and Chris at Chicago Shakespeare, which was an extraordinary decade of my life, was so that I would be able to develop the muscles to hopefully one day come back and be of service to this organization that I love so much. And you know, we were at this inflection point, not only for our industry, but for Chicago and the Chicago cultural construct, in which both Steppenwolf and Chicago Shakespeare are iconic and important to the overall ecology. And so to me, it felt like it was not only a natural progression in terms of, you know, after those 10 years, I had learned so much from Chris and Barbara and the board at Chicago Shakespeare, and been able to accomplish the things that I felt like would really be of value in our partnership and in making sure that Steppenwolf could come back on the other side of the pandemic. And also I felt like in that moment, you know, Chris and Barbara have been such a prolific leadership team and partners at Chicago Shakespeare. So I knew that that theater was also in really good hands in stepping away. But it certainly, I mean, you and I, it was, you know, the sky was falling, right? We both had, the Minutes was supposedly going up to open on Broadway. We had at Chicago Shakespeare 6 was in the same boat. We both had sold out shows running in Chicago, and yet we were being told we had to shut it all down, and we didn't know when we'd be able to come back next, right?
That's right. That's right. And I imagine that, you know, there's a certain kind of agility that you have to be interested in if you serve an executive function at an arts institution. There's never not a fire. That took me like 2 years to figure out that there's never not a fire. I spent the first 2 years thinking that my job was to make sure there wasn't a fire. And then I thought, well, that's futile, because there's always one. It's just about like how quick can you get to them to put them out. And sometimes how long do they need to burn before you can realize get some real knowledge from that crisis? And so I imagine that you think about when you come into an executive position, your first 100 days, right? And there's, this was a pretty intense first 100 days. So how did you look at that first 100 days, and how do you feel like you are right now? I mean, you and I've never really had this conversation, so I'm dying to know.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've been talking about a lot, right, is this idea that our responsibility at Steppenwolf is to ensure that we not only survive, but we evolve and create and build during this moment, right? Because we are a Chicago theater, and in Chicago, theaters don't break, right? And if we don't serve as that sort of beacon of hope that we're going to come back on the other side, that we're going to help re-knit this this community back together through the arts, we're in big trouble. And so, one of the things that we've been doing is really thinking about, okay, in terms of evolution, right? How do we use this moment to look our commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and access in the face, and make sure that we are being a leader in that area? How do we support our education programs? You spoke about this earlier, Steppenwolf Education, and their really nimbleness in terms of pivoting to serve students and teachers during this time. How do we create this sense that, we have this amazing back to stage schedule? As soon as public health and the economic recovery can balance out and we can get back, we're ready. But in the meantime, Steppenwolf now has allowed us this opportunity to really dig in and be a home for generative artists to continue to create. We can expand our service not only in Chicago, but beyond globally, which is super exciting right now. And then all of that points to building the Round Theater, the Education Center, this long held dream to make Chicago know that Steppenwolf is here for them, right? And our doors are wide open. And this is something, right, we were talking about and dreaming about when I left 10 years ago. That's now the fact that building on Halsted Street is literally being created right now during this moment, we're really leaning into that and making sure, we have the resources to get the project done, making sure that we have the ability to share with folks what this means, not only to us artistically, but also of cultural significance to our city.
That's so great. So I would love to go at a couple of those points, right?
Yeah.
So we're not only dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with a very, very important, live, hopefully seminal, reckoning with race in this country. And arts institutions and arts organizations are responding to this call for justice and this call for a review of practice. Can you let our listeners know, kind of give a little bit of a glimpse of that national conversation, and then how Steppenwolf is responding and leading in that national conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've long been members of a Chicago organization called Enrich Chicago, which is committed to advancing an understanding of undoing systemic racism in the performing arts in our city. Beyond that, in June, there was a very honest and generous statement issued by a collective of 300 artists, BIPOC artists, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who included members of our ensemble and staff, as well as amazing artists represented from across the nation. And, they shared some real pain that had been inflicted because of the nature of the construct of our organizations and our society relative to race. And following up on that, in July was issued a list of demands. And we have looked at those as an organization, as an opportunity for reflection and growth, and really to create a strategic plan for the organization that's not only held by Steppenwolf, but moreover, right, Steppenwolf is a sum of our parts. Steppenwolf is the ensemble of Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf is the staff of Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf is the board of the company. And so all three of these organizations are looking at what we can do specifically in terms of measurable, actionable ways that we can shift not only our practice, but also the culture of our organization to be a really safe place to work and create.
That's fantastic. And you know, one of the things that we've been talking about in terms of the ensemble, addressing some of these issues, there's a beautiful and complex thing happening because Steppenwolf's ensemble is no longer this homogeneous group of people. But what we've also realized is that our Venn diagram, where we overlap, is central to our souls, which is that we want to make the best work together. And that we understand in order to make the best work together, we have to be able to make rooms that people can be brave in. And so we're learning that there are practices and there are kind of structures that have gone so long unexamined, and that some of these things are in the way of more explosiveness, more collision, more kind of wonderful possibilities for us as a group of artists. And it's hard work, man. It's you'd rather you didn't need to do it, but I have to say, we're really grateful, all of us, for the We See You What document and the demands. And for those of you who haven't taken a look at it, please take a chance to look at it. I'm sure you'll see some extensions of it in your worlds as well, as we move towards this more equitable place where great art gets to be made. The other thing I wanted you to talk about is, oh my God, our building.
Yeah.
Which it just keeps going up. And you know, it's amazing, right? Because it's been this talismanic thing for the whole community. So update everybody where we are with our arts and education building as it's, you know, springing up.
Yeah, it's so bizarre and exciting, right? To be in this moment where everything is shut down. And yet these amazing craftspeople and tradespeople are on site every day on Halsted Street, making the space for creation for us, and making the home that you all share with us as audiences a place where the art is at the center, and the worlds between our teen audiences, our artists, and our audience members and patrons are sort of, as Anna said, colliding in this beautiful way. You know, I had the great fortune with my previous experience at Chicago Shakespeare and the Yard to work with many of the same team members. So Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill, our architect, Charcoal Blue, our theatrical designers, and Northern Trust, who's been a fantastic institution financially in terms of the lending for the project. In addition to that, our building team here, Norcon, is, you know, second to none. They're just fantastic. And every day when we walk on the site, masked, socially distant, it is fascinating to see, because you guys, because the theaters are dark, right? So everything is under construction. We are making sure that there is a contiguous experience from the moment that you walk into the 1650 doors, which will now be the new box office for all of the spaces. There is new wayfinding signage and opening into Front Bar in the 1700 theater to your right. In terms of the downstairs theater, above you, there'll be a new bar and open space for mingling and community in addition to Front Bar. So you'll have Front Bar to your right, a bar upstairs, and then to your left is the entrance to the Round Theater, another tap room, and then the education loft above. There is the space that is meant for teens. It's a city view room, and it is adjacent to the theater. It's through the glass, you can see the outside of the theater, which is all this cool GFRC, which really is the physical manifestation of this idea of collision that Anna mentioned. And in it, that's where our teens will be meeting and creating and collaborating. And they will look out onto the city and see the audiences for which they are creating. And they will be in proximity to the artist with which, you know, they are being inspired and mentored and partnered with. And it just is so exciting for me to think about, on the other side of this, what that space will mean to our teens, to our artists, and to our city.
I agree. I so agree. It's truly, truly, truly inspiring. And I know for me, it's been in dark, the dark days, it's Jan, my husband, who's a company member, would sometimes just drive the kids by just because it would make him feel good, and they would get to see, oh, this isn't going to go on forever. Brooke, is there anything that you learned from your work building the yard and all that you went through that you feel like you come into this process? I mean, we're down the road quite a bit, but you're still having to make decisions. You're still having to allocate energy and focus. Is there anything you learned that you're bringing into this process, do you think?
Well, I think, both projects are similar in that they are begging us to ask, what is the relationship between artist and audience? And how do we make sure that that is at the center of all the choices that we're making relative to the building? The yard was very different in terms of its inherent flexibility and sort of malleability. The Round Theater is beautiful and unique in terms of its intimacy, and particularly now in terms of when we're thinking about as a performing arts community, this question of, will you come back? Well, of course, our sort of primal need to gather together to witness and share stories has been on the other side of myriad pandemics over centuries. And so when I think about the fact that we are creating this intimate 400-seat theater in the Round, where literally, I think it was Tracy, right, who said, I want them to see me sweat, we will be, in addition to the downstairs theater, in addition to 1700, the Round Theater will give us the opportunity in this moment to feel the work as community. And that to me is very important coming out of this moment of forced separation.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. You've put that so beautifully. No, it's really exciting, and it's an invitation. The whole building, the whole gesture is an invitation to the city that we're so proud to be in community with. Okay. So for those of you who have been tuning into our podcast series, Half Hour, available on our website for free, you know that those conversations end in a lightning round, okay? And we wanted to do that here with Brooke, okay? So we're going to do the lightning round before questions. You ready, Brooke?
I think so.
I'm usually on
breathe.
You got to breathe. I'm usually on the receiving end of this. This is so fun to do. Okay, here we go. Okay. What is your favorite Steppenwolf production that you've ever seen?
Your direction of Bruce's The Pain and the Itch. 100%.
I happen to know that that's true, so it was not just for me. Okay, what's been your toughest experience at Steppenwolf?
That would definitely be, and you and I went through this together, Martha's stroke and passing, and then the subsequent passing of too many of our ensemble members and collaborators. It was a very, very difficult time for all of us.
It sure was. What's your most prized piece of play memorabilia?
So when I left Steppenwolf, Anna and Jan met me and several of our colleagues at Sono, the little pizza place. Do you remember this, Anna? And I was presented with the poster, the Steppenwolf original poster of August Osage County. And I was presented with it because, in addition to Deanna, there, it says, the big quote is, "There's no place like home." And it was to be my reminder that Steppenwolf was my home, and it hung in my office at Chicago Shakespeare lovingly for the 10 years that I was away, and it is now in my office at 1700 North Halsted Street.
That makes me want to start crying. Oh my God, I love that. Okay, favorite moment of any live theatrical experience?
Oh, I'd have to go with John Tiffany's direction of Black Watch. That production, when the first time that he broke the wall, this is National Theatre of Scotland, when he broke the wall with those artists going from a sort of normal scene direction to almost like a ballet, like a choreographed piece. It was just like, I think they broke out of the pool table, right? It was just mind blowing. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's such a great memory. What job didn't you get that broke your heart?
Oh, every play I auditioned for that I started out, so people like might not know this. So I was raised in Nashville, Tennessee. I grew up as an actress, trained as a classical performer, and every time, whether it was Love of the Nightingale or Playboy of the Western World or whatever, I would fall in love with the characters and think that clearly there was no way that anyone else could play them.
Oh my God, I love it. What's the last song you listened to?
Into the Mystic by Van Morrison.
Who's your favorite writer?
Ooh, F. Scott Fitzgerald, probably.
Favorite place to unwind in Chicago?
Running on the lakefront.
What animal do you most identify with?
This is a horse, and I don't know why. I grew up riding horses, maybe? Yeah. I don't know.
And finally, if you were a character in a play, what would your character's description be?
Empathetic, loyal, and determined.
Right on. And you know what else I would add? Tireless and funny as hell.
Thank you.
Oh,
Anna.
that was good. You did a great job.
You were a gracious hostess. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So for now, I would love to take some questions from our audience. And I know Courtney's going to help me do this. And I already have one. Oh my God, this is so fast. Okay. So the first one is, what can young people do to support Steppenwolf during this time if they aren't able to donate financially? That's a great one.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things. I think one of the interesting things right now is that we have the opportunity to share our love for this company, to share the impact of the company. And so social media is huge in terms of, making sure that you're on all of our social media channels and advancing any of the posts and sharing your love for Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf now is available to anyone globally. So increasing our viewership, it's a $75 membership for 6 exquisite and completely different experiences. I think the other thing is that folks who have educators who are friends or high school students, Animal Farm is free. And so there, if you go on to our social media channels, folks can see, and that's what I've been advancing to a lot of my colleagues in the education field, to make sure that we're serving as many students as we can during this time.
Fantastic. Okay, here's the next one.
Okay.
How are you balancing having a local and national platform, both in terms of programming during a pandemic and responding to calls for racial justice and equity? It's a great question.
It is a great question. So, I think the beautiful thing about your leadership, Anna, and the focus that you have put on Chicago is that and Steppenwolf is that we are a Chicago-based theater that has a responsibility to our city. And because of the excellence of our work, we have a national and international reputation, which makes us responsible for being a leader in our field. And the order of priority is in that sequence. We are a very honest, authentic, and transparent organization. And I think that we, as we mentioned earlier, specifically with We See You White American Theater, we both have viewed the statement and the demands as a gracious act of truth and sharing. And so we take everything very much to heart, and we feel like we have an opportunity to make a difference right in this moment.
That's right. And this is kind of going to pull into that. I really love this line of questioning how do we draw more BIPOC, and remember BIPOC, you guys, is Black, Indigenous, people of color, into, oops, I just lost it, hold on one second, into, I believe it's going to say management, into theater management career paths.
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of things. One is that we, at Steppenwolf, we have, through our professional leadership program, invested in over the years real life experience for folks who want to come into arts administration, specifically theatrical arts administration. There has long been a commitment to BIPOC members of that professional leadership program, and that has evolved over time. I think, the way that we as a whole field are looking at this is making sure that in addition to the professional leadership development programs that we have, we're examining what is the role of mentorship, what is the role of making sure that we are cultivating, when we have job openings, that we are cultivating the spaces in which we are making those aware, and really being much more active in recruiting and engagement, so that we're not just perpetuating this idea that only certain people can apply, or only certain people can succeed in a career of arts administration. So I think, does that, Anna, do you want to add anything on to that?
No, I think you've got it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I teach at Northwestern and in the theater department. And I have to say that we have to start this conversation well earlier than at the theater level. This is an education commitment challenge that I'm really proud of Northwestern and their putting their energy and their money into the recruitment of BIPOC students for practice. But it's very challenging around management, because of management doesn't usually come in until a graduate school level. But these are all really important questions and things that I personally am going at as a partner to Brooke, and at my job at Northwestern and nationally as an educator. The other question I've got here is, do either of you have ideas how to improve remote streaming of theater events? And I'll just, that's a really good question, because, I mean, here's the amazing thing. Theater artists in particular are used to being kind of hobbled, right? We have layers of obstacle to doing our work. The biggest obstacle is accessibility for us. There's scarcity. The scarcity creates a lot of problems for theater makers. And then there's always resources, right? But what the pandemic has done has kind of thrown down the gauntlet in terms of our limitations. And what I'm seeing happening does not surprise me at all, which is that the theater artists are picking themselves up, dusting themselves off, and saying, okay, we can't replicate being in a room together, but what we have to do is continue to make meaning in people's lives. So what we've done with our streaming, the virtual work, is that we've gone to the artists whose work we were unable to produce and said to them, do you have something that you want to do that's for the platform? And the majority of our Steppenwolf Now work is for the platform. We have a couple of other projects that we're adapting for the platform, but part of this is really just going to have to be about taking the limitation that theater artists have always had to manage and turning it into an opportunity to make work whose impact can travel this far, as opposed to 50 feet. It has to be able to travel all over the world. And so I think that what you'll find when you guys start watching our stuff is that we're finding different formats, different forms, and different ways to share a feeling. And we're just going to get better, and so are our colleagues all over the country. And Brooke, I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
That was beautiful, Anna, and it's so true. And it's been so cool to watch how not only our ensemble, but our collaborators and this extension of playwrights and I don't even know what they're like. The diversity of the work over Steppenwolf Now is so cool.
Okay.
But I do say, like, tactically, so you guys, what I do, because I'm in front of a computer screen, is I want to have a little bit more breath and a little bit, sort of a similar experience. So I actually stream it, what I'm streaming, onto my television through AirPlay through my Apple TV. And so I actually view streaming things, and I will view all 6 of our Steppenwolf Now programs sort of in situation with my family. I have 3 young children, and my husband and I will sit down and, we'll experience it live. And I think, whatever aperture, whether you're experiencing it through your phone or through your computer or you're streaming, right? Everybody has to find their own way into the literal experience. But Anna and the team have done such an amazing job of creating a real journey over this next year. And I'm really excited for you all to experience it.
Me too. And I also feel like one of the other things is that now that I know, the response, you guys, to the Steppenwolf Now virtual work has been so much more than we anticipated. And now I'm having this feeling, Brooke, of knowing I'm watching our work with a global audience. So there's something that's changing there where I feel like what we all know about Steppenwolf and everyone on this call is invested in for so long, to be able to sit and virtually be next to someone in Belgium when they're watching it, or, it's changing my whole orientation. The next question is, will you program in the round theater the same way you program the proscenium theater? I guess that's kind of a question for me to answer, and Brooke
absolutely.
can see if there's economics. The way that we looked at creating the new building, right, with the new theater, was that we wanted to create a new frame. So if you imagine, if you went to the Art Institute and every piece of art was in the same frame, and it's not, for a reason. We see things in context. We understand ideas by virtue of their context. And what we wanted to do was create another frame, another place for our art to sit, to live. So what we'll do really is go, does this show belong here, or does this show belong there? And those are really subjective decisions, because they actually have to do with thematics and meaning and the implied meaning of frame. But those decisions usually come from what the playwright feels the play needs to do, how a play needs to move. Certain plays, it would be very challenging to do them in the round, say if they're very static, right? Because being in the round, there's a lot of flow. So it's just going to be about what fits the frame right. And Brooke, I don't know if you want to add to that. There's another question.
I mean, the only thing we would say about economics, right, is that the experiment that you all have graciously indulged us with over the past, 15 years, is that we added to the downstairs theater the theater upstairs. And that allowed us to see what it would be like to program across 2 larger volume theaters. The round theater not only changes the aperture, the framing, as Anna was saying, but it also adds 100 more seats than we had in the upstairs theater. So it makes, not only does it give us a different way to tell stories and to shift the relationship between audience and artist, but it also makes it more financially viable from an earned revenue perspective for us to do the work.
Exactly. And before I sign off, Brooke, I just want to see if there's anything else that you would like to leave us with. I mean, you and I can talk for hours and hours and hours, but we don't get that right now. So
That's right.
I just want to know if there's anything, we all want to know if there's anything you'd like to leave us with before we sign off.
Just the fact that, first of all, thank you, Anna, for this today. And thank you for your partnership. And to you all, I mean, Steppenwolf is a very special and sacred place, and we're very much missing being together with you during this time. We're very determined, right, to continue to evolve and to create and to build and to represent what it means to be a Chicago theater. And I think, as Anna said, having this moment where we can introduce not only the city in this time of forced closure, but the world to the work that you so love and admire, and have the theater as this beacon of hope for all of us, that we will come back on the other side. We will be gathered together in community. And we're just so grateful for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you. And as we run out of time, I do want to say that yesterday my son was asking us questions about what would be different if COVID hadn't happened, and was there anything we were happy about because of COVID? And I said, actually, the top thing I can think of is that I'm not sure that I would have Brooke next to me, and I'm super, super glad for that. So, I mean, you are truly like a light in this. I know we're going to get through it, and I know we're going to get through it in huge part because of you. So I'm super grateful. And I want to just thank you for being here this afternoon. You're super, super busy, and you guys do not want to know what her schedule is. And she's so relaxed, and this is how she handles everything. It's just, you want to be in a foxhole with Brooke. Trust me. And of course, we touched on the new campus and Theater in the Round. I invite you guys, the audience, to learn more about the project by finding campus expansion on our website. We recently started hosting monthly virtual tours of the new space. We would love to have you see the amazing progress being made. It is really exciting if you could use a smile. And finally, thank you for joining us. We couldn't do any of the work we do without your support. I don't need to look at a script to say thank you for everything that you do, for linking arms with us, for letting us know how important theater is to you. It's a partnership Brooke and I are so proud of, and we will live up to your expectations, and we're really grateful for you. So thank you all so much, and I hope we get to see each other in person soon.
Thank you, everyone. Be well.